I suspect I'm not about to tell you anything. I hope I'm not going to tell you anything so radical that it sort of shakes the foundation of your faith. But I hope I am going to give you some ideas, some next steps this evening. Faith in Kids is trying to do this, which is support churches and families in raising children to know Christ. So I guess that might be where I start. So can I just check, have you all got a copy? You don't have to have it printed out, but have you all been sent one of these?
I didn't send to them, sorry.
Fine. In that case, you don't need to fiddle with this too much, but I believe in the chat, I'm going to place a link. And I think if you click on that, you'll get a PDF. You don't need to click on it. You don't need that bit of paper. It's not a magic key. I'm going to take you through that on a PowerPoint. But if you wanted to look at that later, you can. I'm just going to run through a few slides. I'll go at a fair speed, and then we'll find out what you want to talk about afterwards, okay? This is my Bible slide of the evening. And this is Deuteronomy 6:4-7. Moses stands on the edge of the promised land. Moses looks over the river Jordan to the promised land. He is sending the people over, and he decides, what do I need to tell God's people to live in the promised land? This is what he says. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. Jesus said that's the most important commandment. It doesn't come as a surprise to us. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, and when you get up. So what we have here is the very cornerstone of Judaism. There is one God. Love him with all of your being. What do you do next? Talk to him with your children. Just on the Sabbath? Just when you gather? No. Whenever you walk, whenever you get up, whenever you climb into the car, whenever you climb out of the car, whenever you sit down at the kitchen table, whenever you drop them off at school, whenever they laugh, whenever they cry. So the pattern is set throughout the whole Bible, which is God's people always start with the children. The catastrophes for God's people are when the children aren't told of him, and a generation grows up who don't know the Lord. So, and this passage also is spoken with parents in front, but it's spoken to the whole of God's people. So we learn here there is a sharing, a partnership that is needed to raise children. To raise children, we start with the parents and we say, get into God's gathering, and everyone supports you in it. So to raise a child takes parents and it takes a church. I remember when my oldest was born, and she was born at 6 o'clock in the morning, and at 8 o'clock at evening, I was allowed to leave the hospital, and my wife, Mary, had to stay. I was secretly relieved I was leaving. It had been a very traumatic day for me. And I remember as I left, I had my hand on the doorknob to leave, and Mary said to me from her hospital bed, I've just got one question, Ed. What do I do when Beth wakes up? Because she'd slept through the whole day. That was the first moment I realized we were in very real trouble. You see, I knew I had no idea how to be a father. I honestly believed Mary knew all the answers. I don't know why I thought that. I think I just believed God had given women a better go at this than men, but she had no clue. So that taught me something very helpful, which is no parent has a clue what they're doing. So that means we get to say to every parent, it doesn't really matter what you think of Jesus, you should join our church or you are really up against it. Because when a parent comes to church, they gather with a group of people who are going to love them and help them and support them and help them. So when my wife is in tears, it is always a member of church I ring or knock on their door. And I have knocked on their door before now and said, help. Can we come in? We don't know what we're doing and we're stuck. So I just want to encourage you, whether you have no children or 200 children, church will always be the best place for parents and children to be. Because Jesus came to give life to the full, and he told the disciples to let the children come to him. Okay? I suspect that's not new, but I just want to encourage you, it's still the same story, because God's love doesn't change and his model for children doesn't change. Screens come and go, bicycles come and go. Children still need to be in churches where they're shown Jesus. Okay? I'm just going to show you a couple of graphs now. I used to be an engineer, so I find graphs encouraging when they teach you the same as the Bible. If graphs make your brain hurt, this won't last long, okay? And we'll move on. But just go with me for a minute. This graph here, this one, 2017, a survey was done of Bible opening, worship, singing, praying Christians. Those in churches were asked, when did you come to faith? Okay, Christians in churches in the UK were asked, when did you come to faith? 40% said when I was under 5. 40% of UK churches are there and they don't remember a time their mum didn't open the Bible, their dad didn't pray with them at bed, and their parents didn't drag them to church. The largest amount number. 16% between the ages of 5 and 10, we're now up to 56% of the UK church. More than half of the UK church say they came to faith before the end of primary school. The reason for that is that the Bible says, teach a child where they should go, and when they're older, they won't depart from it. And developmentally, we know a child's moral framework is built by the age of 9. So by the age of 9, a child has decided, when do I lie? When do I tell the truth? When do I share? When do I steal? Who do I trust? When do I trust them? That's done by 9. By 13, a child's spiritual framework is built. By 13, a child has decided, is there an unseen world? Does God exist? Does the devil exist? Is God good? Is God bad? Why is there suffering in the world? Do I trust God? Do I hate God? By 13. So you understand what this data tells you is what the Bible says and what developmental scientists say, which is it's much easier to start from the ground up and build a framework right first time than it is to persuade someone later in life. What wouldn't we give for our best friend who isn't a Christian to have grown up in a Christian home? So we know that new birth is taking the framework apart and building it again from the bottom up. That's what rebirth means. I am sorry for the way I have thought the world worked. I trust you, God, that your framework in the Bible is the right way to go. The data says start with children. And finally, you'll see under 18s, another 19%, 3/4 of the UK church came to faith under 18. Okay? I'm going to skip through to this one. Okay, now I know this is the wrong setting for this. This is Church of England data. Okay? We are a non-denominational organization. It's just the Anglicans are very good at data. They collect data so we can learn from their data. Okay? If this makes your eyes bleed, it'll be gone soon. All right? Now, every year, Church of England churches are asked, who's in your building? This is the data from 2016, and it's got worse, not better. So the top line, this is under 16s in the church building. So the top line is 0 under 16s in your building. 3,800 churches said not one child under 16 in our building. That's 36% of Anglican churches. Okay, have we got that? 36% of Church of England churches say we don't have a single under 16. Next line, 1 to 5 under 16s, another 29%. So we're now up to 2/3 of Church of England churches in the UK have less than 5 under 16s. Now, the data for non-conformist churches is similar. So that's to say, if you have 5 or more under 16s in your church, sadly, you're in the top third in England. If we go to the other end, we're looking at the bottom now. More than 100 under 16s, there are 30 churches in the country. Anglican churches. 51 to 100, 140 churches. More than 26, 540. So I'm almost done. The bottom 3 rows represent the top 7% of Anglican churches in the country who have more than 25 children. I have a friend called Jimmy who put this data together. Jimmy said there are 3 things in common about the bottom 3 rows. Ready for this? The bottom 3 rows have 3 things in common. They are normally urban or suburban, towns, cities. It's very hard to have children or young people in a church if you're not in a town or city. So if you're in a country church, it's not impossible, but it's hard. You know that. Secondly, they spend more than they pay for 1 hour or more in someone who works with children and young people. 1 hour a week. Do you see how low the bar is? What's that? £50 for 1 hour a week? 1 hour a week gets you into the bottom 3 rows. In other words, if they want children and young people, they've chosen to invest in it. Thirdly, they teach the Bible. If you want children or young people, you need to teach the Bible. If you don't teach the Bible, you don't have any children or young people. If you do teach the Bible, you don't always get children and young people. But if you don't teach the Bible, it's almost impossible. Have you followed that? So that's why Faith in Kids is for teaching the Bible to children and young people in a way they can understand. Okay. Okay, I'll stop that. The graphs are finished. Okay, the graphs are finished. So where have we got to so far? We've got to understanding that in the UK at the moment, there aren't many churches who have plenty of under 16s in them. So the stories you were telling as you introduced yourselves, those are not alien or surprising. Okay, let me just say a few things about what I would say to those churches maybe who feel like they've got, say, under 10, under 16s. Can I just give you a few patterns, a few places to start? It may not be you, but listening to some of you, it might be. The first thing to say is one of you said, we started with the toddlers. We started with creche. That's the right place to start. So for a family, it is a seismic change in your life having children. I would absolutely say that's true for me. I think my wife would agree. It's the only time in her life she's gently fallen apart and just said, I have no idea what I'm doing. Okay. So in other words, when a family has their first child, for the first time, probably they don't know what they're doing and they need help. Churches are there. The majority of under 5s in the UK are involved in a church toddler group. I'm going to say that again slowly. The majority, more than half of under 5s in the UK are involved in a church toddler group. What that tells you is mums want to be in a place where they are loved, given cake, good coffee, and a chance to relax and be told it's okay. You don't need to know what you're doing. So we start with the youngest. We don't have to have a mums and toddlers group. We don't have to have a dads and toddlers group. I'm just making the point. It is the right place to start with a creche. Okay. Second thought, with under sevens, they are the only person in their world. So an under 7 believes everyone is like them, which means an under 7 believes every child in their class is a Christian if they're a Christian. So it is easier to gather under 7s in your church because peer pressure doesn't yet exist. Within about a year of turning 7 or 8, suddenly they say, I'm the only one who goes to church. So from 8, it's much harder. They start to say, why isn't there more children in this church? So I just want to say, start young, and those 7 years, if you like, are sort of free. So you can have 3 under 7s and they'll think it's great. Look, I have all of these uncles and aunts, big sisters, grannies and granddads. Okay. So, but the key, third point, from the beginning, we need to deliberately disciple children, like we deliberately disciple each other. So just because they're coming in as creche, just because they're coming to messy church, just because their parents are willing to come to be whatever it is, there is coming a day where these children will decide for themselves whether they do or don't want to stay in church. And that won't happen on that day. When a 15-year-old says to dad, I'm not coming to church, it's not that the 15-year-old decided the day before. It was that the 15-year-old decided when they were 8, but they had to wait till they were 15 before they could look their dad in the eye and think they were going to win the fight. So the solution is not to suddenly start discipling our 15-year-olds. The solution is to be teaching our 1-year-olds, our 2-year-olds, and our 3-year-olds why Jesus is the rock on which to build their lives. So to those of you who said we've only got the under 11s and we want to know how to build a youth group, it's okay to say our under 11s will be our youth group. And there's not a radical change that happens when they turn 12 or 13. They still need the love of their family, the love of the church, and Jesus Christ. We disciple them the same way. We show them Jesus Christ. We explain how he changes tomorrow. And that takes individuals to love them. Okay, I think we've got 3 so far. Start at birth, under 7s, that you can have very few and they'll be happy. You disciple children from the beginning, or they will leave, because our culture at the moment is not saying Jesus Christ is the hero. So we have to do better than Liverpool Football Club. We have to do better than England cricket. We have to do better than the riding school down the road. We have to do better than the skateboard park. They have to answer the question, where am I loved? By saying, in my church. That is where I'm loved. That is where they know me. That is where I can cry and I can laugh. Okay, I'm on to the 4th idea. 4th idea, it takes a church to raise a child, which has always been the Christian story. Okay, so what that means is it's not enough to say we have 5 children in our church. We have to say, do I know their names? Do I know how last week went for them? Do I know what I'm going to ask them this week? It's not enough to be able to say, hello, Ed. There needs to be 5 people in the church, other than their parents, who know how Ed's week has gone. Do you follow? Deliberate relationships. Deliberate discipleship. So I heard a story of a single mum who said to me, she's got 2 teenagers. She said she got so frustrated with her 2 teenagers. She walked into church. She pushed them through the door and said, talk to anyone. Do you understand what she meant by that? You are sick of me. I am sick of you. Pick any brother or sister in this church and talk to them. In other words, every single one of them I trust to give you wisdom and love. Pick any of them, talk to them about your problems. That is a healthy church that is there for that mum. So the question is, could the mums or dads in our church say that to their kids? Go to anyone in this church and you'll get love. Pick anyone. They'll know your name. They'll know where you live. They'll know what you enjoy. They'll know what you find difficult. They'll sit you down. They'll give you a biscuit. They'll talk to you, and they might finish by saying, can I pray with you about that? Children are not aliens. However old you are, you can be a grandparent, an uncle, an aunt, a big sister, a big brother. They haven't changed since your day. They haven't changed since you were a child. They wear different trainers. They're still desperate for love and belonging. I may have spoken enough, okay? So what I'm suggesting is, I've talked at you for a while. I haven't yet got to lockdown learnings. So maybe that's what I'll do next. But I suspect we could just go to breakout groups for a moment and we could just work out, I think the central question I'd love you to think about is, what has resonated from what I've said? What are your questions? Okay. Now I've got some things to say about lockdown. I've got some things to say about Easter, but I would love to hear from you before we do that. Does that sound right, Lucia?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay. Does anyone just want to ask, do you want any clarity on what to talk about in your breakout group? No one's waving at me. Okay. So you're going to go into your breakout groups. What's resonated? What are your questions? What do you want to argue about? Come out again. We'll talk about it. And then I'll talk a bit about lockdown and a bit about Easter. Yeah. I'm now going to, I guess, throw some resources at you. And it may or may, let's see what we think. So the first thing I'd love to do, let's just share that. Oh, hang on. There we go. Great. Okay. This is the Faith in Kids website, faithinkids.org. Okay. So all I want to say is, in here you have some Sunday school resources. You have some all-age talks and some children's slots. So you have everything is free to download. You don't have to pay for anything. If you go down to the bottom, you see our most recent resources. This is faithinkids.org. And here you have a range of Easter resources. I'm just going to take you to those in a moment that we have developed. And then further down, you go to a blog. All right. Up here, you find out about our podcast, which I guess is for families and for parents. So these resources are mainly aimed at supporting churches. The podcasts up here are mainly aimed at supporting families. And the resources and the blog, there will be some church leader blogs in here. So if you went to that blog, some articles for church leaders, some for those who lead children's and youth work, some for parents. Okay. If I, oh dear, yeah. In here, no, in there. In those Easter resources, this is one, it's called a Weekend of Wonder. So the idea is you might put this in a bag. These are all to download from the website, those Easter resources. I'm now showing you what those Easter resources are. This is a sort of resource for a family who I guess you've had some contact with. So they are lukewarm to Christian things, but we're not assuming they're Christians. So this is a weekend of activities for a family. We're thinking about lockdown. A lot of them are about going for walks. And the idea might be you drop it in a bag with a homemade brownie, and I don't know, some stickers. And it's the act of you putting it on their doorstep just says, I love you enough to be doing this. So we know some churches who made up 100 bags, a leaflet about Easter. There's a lot of them around. One of this and so on. You get the idea. Okay. This is an idea called Easter Homes of Hope. So the idea is all families are going for walks. We are just going to organize that every family in our church decorates their garden according to a theme of Easter. And down at the bottom of this, there are about 14 ideas for what you could do with a garden. As simple as putting up a verse. Here you've got someone who made an angel. In other words, there's a Bible verse. Do it in your garden and then tell your community on a map somehow. We've given you instructions of how to do that map. Get that to families. Can you go around the 14 homes in this trail? Tick them off. We'll give you a prize. In other words, you're saying families are going for a walk. We're going to send you on a walk and we're going to take you through the Easter story in very simple terms. And you're going to just tick them off. And one idea. If you live in a village, this is perfect. If you live in Manchester, it's maybe not perfect. But if you think Manchester's the best city in the world, you've got other ways of doing it. We've got here a Zoom escape room. If that doesn't mean anything to you, escape rooms are a thing. And in lockdown, virtual escape rooms are a thing. So this escape room is aimed at sort of 8 to 12-year-olds. And the idea is, can you free Barabbas in 20 minutes, going through a series of challenges? And obviously at the end, we get to why would you free a known criminal? And that introduces an aspect of the Easter story. This could be, you could send this to a family and say, just do it on your kitchen table, or you could do it with 3 families through Zoom if you get your technology. And here is a few slides from that escape room. Okay. I'm just going to keep going for the moment. These are the podcasts we do. So we have produced 2 books of family Bible times. The Wonder of Easter was last year. Meals with Jesus is this year. 35 family Bible times. This one, Meals with Jesus, is taking a family through the 8 meals Jesus had in Luke's Gospel. The podcast is me going through one of these meals, Bible open, having some fun. So that, in other words, if the idea of opening the Bible as a family is so new, you send them to a podcast on the website and they can have a go and they'll go, oh, well, look, we could do that. That's easy. Buy a book, do it ourselves. That's the kids podcast. We also do one for parents. The episode that came out last week or this week, I lose track, is talking to 3 different families. How do you do Bible times? Hearing about their chaos. Because it's always encouraging to find out that it's chaos in every family. On the 27th of March, we're doing an Easter bake-along. This means that picture, she's called Martha Collison. She was on the Great British Bake Off. She made it to the quarterfinals. She is a Christian. So her and I are going to bake some fudge brownies using Easter eggs. We're going to bake. I'm going to explain the Easter story. She's going to tell us what it's like to trust in the living God who rose from the dead. So the idea is if you follow what Faith in Kids does, soon we are going to be telling you, get these ingredients delivered to a family. You drop the ingredients off at a family and tell them to join us at a link we'll give you 27th of March. You follow, they go, crumbs, thank you. We'd like to bake some brownies. And you're going to tell me that Ed and Martha aren't going to be offensive about Jesus, then we could join. And they bake, it'll last about 25 minutes. Or we are soon going to have a script to download for you to do it yourself if you want to, but otherwise just join us. I think I'm almost done. There you go. I've told you about books. This is what the inside of one of the books looks like. They all look the same, sorry. Same format. They don't all look the same. You see there on the left, you've got some questions to get you going. You've got on the right 2 verses of the Bible to read. And then you've got questions for everyone, and then questions for 3 and 4-year-olds, 5s to 7s. In other words, even a family with a 3-year-old can have a go. You read them 2 verses, you move some Lego figures, you ask them what happened, you pray. At the bottom, there's the prayer idea. Okay?
Brilliant.
I think I will stop there. Before I just, Faith in Kids would love to help you. That we exist for that reason. I've told you a bit about it. We have a website. You can find out what we do. Some here join us at the Big Day Out. Give us a wave if you've been to a Big Day Out. There you go. A Big Day Out is, we've been doing it online. We used to do it in London, Birmingham, Exeter. London, Birmingham, Exeter, and where's the other one? Hull. I've forgotten where we did them. In Zoom, we've been doing them online. We're aiming for the person who leads children's work in the local church. So maybe that ambassador I spoke about. We want to help that person help you. That's the Big Day Out events on our website. You can find them all there. If you want to be a partner church with Faith in Kids, that's a thing we do, but you'd expect me to say that. We need churches to support us with prayer, love, finance. You can email me on the website. We're a team. I'll stop.